Hello and welcome everyone who's joining us here today for this interview. I'm very proud to be able to share with you the information regarding Pacific Home Care Services and their president, Leticia Robles. So thank you for joining us today, Leticia.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, so we are thrilled, first of all, that you are our sponsor, one of our sponsors with Senior Care of Sacramento. So thank you so much for that. Leticia is an amazing woman. As the president of Pacific Home Care, she is very involved in the community. She has a BS in Business Administration from the University of Pacifica in Stockton, California, where she now also serves on the Board of Regents. She is a member of the Board of Directors of the Children's Home of Stockton and on the Sutter Health Valley Area Board of Directors. So she's a loving mother and wife, and she loves traveling and spending time with her family. So she really does value the characteristics and values of family that she provides for in her caregiving services with Pacific Home Care. So thank you so much, Leticia.
Yes, you are very welcome.
And today we are going to be talking about long-term care planning, which is a very big issue right now and one that I'm passionate about as you, of course, because we are always dealing with families that are needing help, and so unfortunately so many just don't plan ahead, and so that's why we really are encouraging people to plan ahead, and this is a little education to help people with that planning. So hopefully we can answer some questions and give some really valuable information to people today. And Leticia is the perfect person for that because she has over 20 years experience in giving home care services to seniors and adults. So God bless you.
Thank you so much. It's been a great 20 years, and I often say, and I know it may sound a little corny, but I really believe that I was put on this earth to do the job that I do. I thoroughly enjoy it. I love helping people, and uh, whatever it takes, we will go above and beyond to try to make things work for families. So I think I'm the luckiest person to be able to do this type of work. I wouldn't even call it work. It really is a passion.
And it shows. And the same for me. It's my passion too. The work is very rewarding. People are so grateful for our help.
Mhm.
We're
Absolutely.
blessed in that way. So then it's always nice when your job doesn't feel like work and you enjoy it. So I agree with you there.
Absolutely.
So we're gonna I have a few questions to help give some really good practical steps for preparing for long-term care, some available resources, and some of your professional insights for our listeners. Um, I wanted to talk, well, let's first define long-term care a little bit. What does long-term care entail, and what are the different types of care available?
Okay. Well, that is a great question and a basic question that I think it is important to begin with. First and foremost, I think it's important to distinguish between short-term care and long-term care because there definitely is a difference. Short-term care it usually refers to the type of care you need, but you're only going to need it for a short while, for a short period. I'll give you a personal example. A year ago, I had foot surgery. I knew that the recovery was 3 months. I knew that I was going to be in a cast for 3 months. I also knew I was going to need some additional support and assistance in my home in order for me to continue living my life. So I had short-term care. I had somebody come in and help me. It was only for 3 months. Once I was out of the cast, back to normal activity. I did not need that care. There is such a thing, and we provide that care as well, but that is short term and it comes and it goes away. Long term care pertains to care that is never going to really go away. Why? it's not going to go away because the individual that needs the care is in a situation, whether it's a chronic medical problem or they have just gotten to an age where they can no longer care for themselves. And that is I think, the basic definition of long-term care, and why it's important that people plan for that time in their life, because many people, most of us don't want to think of being in that situation, but God willing, we will all be in that situation. The alternative is that you passed on early on, and that's not a better alternative. But if we get to a point where we've aged and we still want to continue living our life, but we can't do it 100% without some assistance, we're never going to age reverse the reverse way. We're not getting younger. We're only going to get older. And so that is long-term care, where we just need it until um, until we pass. So that is kind of the difference between the two.
Well, thank you. And thank you for sharing your personal story. That's awesome when you come from that place of having the very personal experience in addition to your professional experience. So we appreciate that. And I also would like to add that we have so many caregivers out there. Another short-term type of care that is really important that a lot of people and caregivers are not aware of is respite care. So
Yes.
caregivers need to take a break sometimes because if they don't take care of themselves, they're not going to be able to take care of the one they love. So I like to encourage people to also get respite care for, take 2 weeks or a month vacation. You really need to have that for your own self as well. So that's another form of short-term care that I always try to encourage for all our caregivers out there.
Absolutely. You make a great point. In fact, that is one of the areas that I touch upon. I know that many people ask me, so when do I know my loved one needs long-term care? Or what are the common indicators? And there's some basic common indicators that will tell you you're at that point. One of which is if you are the main caregiver and you are completely exhausted and burnt out, that's an indicator you need some additional support. So I agree. And that support comes through the form of respite care, where somebody comes in on a short assignment, they take over what you normally do, and that way you can step away from the care, go on a vacation, even if it's just go out for a walk or go to a movie or do something for yourself, that helps tremendously. So
Absolutely. Go to Hawaii if you can. Somewhere with a whole new environment, but a lot of times you have to do a staycation, what we call staycation, where you still, you can't afford to go on vacation, so you stay at home, but you have somebody there that takes care of all the responsibilities so you can have some free time to do some self-care. So I agree.
absolutely, absolutely. Take a yoga class, or even if you're next door in a room next to your loved one, and you don't have to think about it's time to administer meds, or it's time to change a diaper, or it's whatever the time is, but you just focus on yourself. That on its own, if you do it on occasion, that's really helpful. Very, very helpful.
Yeah, and so what are some of the indicators that a loved one may require long-term care, like some specific indicators that it's time to, step in and help mom or dad or your aunt or uncle, whoever, grandma, grandpa?
Absolutely. I categorize them under eight. There's 8 signs that I have seen. Um, First and foremost is when they are just unable to do the things that they normally would do to care for themselves. They can't bathe anymore. They can't dress themselves properly. It's the day-to-day activities that they can no longer do. And there are some signs, and again, I'll share a personal story. Uh, my mom, I grew up with a mom. She's passed now, but I grew up with a mom who was extremely, she was a very clean person. Believed you bathe in the morning, you bathe at night before bed. She taught us to do all of these things. all of a sudden, as she was aging, we started noticing, hmm, mom doesn't bathe every day anymore. What's going on? And there was some like um odors and so forth that and these are touchy conversations, but we started to notice there's something different about mom. Uh, and that's when we realized she's not bathing. She's either forgetting or she's just not doing it. And so you start seeing the signs that they're there. They're just sometimes they're so personal that people don't want to address them, but they're definitely there. So that's one. Um, if they've had several falls, if they've taken several falls or they're in danger of falling, that is a really critical sign that you want to pay attention because, it's estimated that 3 million adults go to the emergency room because they've taken a fall. And those falls usually can lead to something more serious. Some of them, it could lead to death because it complicates. Once they land in the hospital, things get complicated and it's a spiral downward. So, uh, having taken many falls it's a warning sign. The other part is that they're not safe by themselves. They leave the stove on. They could leave running water on. Things of that nature. You want to pay attention. The other, if they have a chronic health condition, diabetes, arthritis, heart disease, anything like that, and they're older, they definitely may require additional help and assistance in their home. Then if they can't remember to take their medications, or even worse, if they are taking it incorrectly. And it is so, you would be amazed to find out how many individuals take the wrong medication because they're elderly, they're forgetting things, and they take it incorrectly, which affects their health, and then it's again a spiral downward. Then they're neglecting daily chores. You could come and visit your parents, and all of a sudden you realize the refrigerator has moldy food inside, and it's everywhere. They haven't cleaned out a refrigerator, or their lawn is overgrown by X amount, or just things of that nature. I mean, we all will get behind some of our chores, but I'm talking excessively or things that are very noticeable that you start seeing clutter around their home. You start noticing, well, that has not been, cared for in a very long time. That's another sign. Another one is that they've had several trips to the emergency room. Why they keep going to the emergency room? That's a sign that they may need some support in their home. And then lastly, what I mentioned earlier, if you are the primary caretaker and you are feeling overwhelmed, stressed out, burnt out, just tired, and you're finding that you can't get to any of your personal things because you're caring for this individual, it is time to get some additional support. So those are in a nutshell, the signs that I would look for that the individual needs more support. And if they want to stay at home, there's the services that we offer, for example, it's in their home. This doesn't mean that they have to go to a facility, to a long-term care facility or anything like that. It just means you have to address it and you have to look at all your options.
Yes, thank you. And as a placement agency and as a gerontologist, I also do assessments as well as what you guys do your assessments for clients that need in-home care. And when I go out and do assessments, I'm looking for those signs as well. And I also do long-term care planning as a consultant and a gerontologist for our clients. So sometimes they're not ready to move to assisted living, but they do need some in-home care. They need a little bit of help and, they could stay at home. And as a gerontologist, our philosophy is aging in place. And so we like to keep people at home, and people want to stay at home as long as possible. Although when I do my assessments, I also am assessing for all those things that you just mentioned. And I just would add to that, that also, um, when I'm assessing, I'm a lot of times, sometimes it can just be loneliness too, though. They need companionship, and that's when somebody's coming in, and if they're left alone too long, then it can start to cause memory loss. Actually, if somebody's isolated for too long, we had a lot of that happen during COVID. And
Mhm.
so it's really important that they have some kind of social interaction. And as seniors get older, they there's a lot of grieving going on. They're losing their vision, they're losing their sight, they're losing their ambulation, they're losing their friends around them because they're all getting older. So they really need to have some social interaction and companionship. Sometimes that may be all they need, just somebody to come and take them out to lunch or have a conversation with them. So those are all signs to look for, in addition to all um, the other great things that you mentioned, that have to do
Mhm.
with their, physical capabilities of managing their home. And when you start seeing all those things starting to go by the wayside, that's when the family members need to come in and
Absolutely.
help
Uh,
out. So
Absolutely. Loneliness can lead to so many other issues. And it is important, especially when if there was a couple and one of the individuals passes, that other individual left behind is really in a bad situation sometimes, and they just need that companion to talk to, somebody to talk to. So absolutely, it's really, really important.
yeah, so let's talk a little bit about why families should plan ahead. And so what challenges do families face when care is not planned in advance? Can you address that a little bit for us?
Yes, so there's boy, an array of challenges. First, first and foremost, um, you're put in a place of a little bit of chaos. So these are the calls I receive. I am at the hospital and my mom is about to be discharged, and they're thinking she'll be discharged today, maybe tomorrow, but I need help. And at that point, we start asking, oh, okay, so do you have long-term care insurance? Nope. Are you a veteran? No. Do you have Medi-Cal? Because Medi-Cal now covers home care, long-term care.
That's
Uh,
really important. That's a very big issue and really why I'm so excited to have this interview today with you, is to get that, we need to get that word out, and people need to know that Medi-Cal, and a lot of people think that Medi-Cal is not for everybody, but and they think that there's asset requirements, and there's a big myth out there now that if you have too many assets, you don't qualify for Medi-Cal. Medi-Cal has changed all that, and so that is no longer true. So people really need to educate themselves and look into all the services that are available. And you can do what's called asset protection. It's one of the things that I help people with,
mhm.
in order to go through getting their ducks in a row and making those steps so people can get the help that they need. And medical insurance is covering that now. So it's a huge change, especially here in California.
Absolutely. And you bring up a good point. So this is my point, is that, I go down the list, or we go down the list, and they're like, no, 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 we haven't even thought about this. But their mom is ready to be discharged. And there's that sense of panic and chaos, and usually it's an adult child that says, and I have my own family, and I have to go to work, and I have this, and now I have to care for her as well. So what I see often is the lack of planning puts you in that situation. And if you started to notice some of the signs with aging and so forth, and you took the time to say, what are we going to do when mom or when dad or when both get to a place where they no longer can care for themselves, what should we do? And it starts with that. It just starts with acknowledging the fact that mom and dad are aging, which is really hard sometimes to acknowledge that mom and dad are on the tail end of life. It's a very it's emotional, it's challenging, uh, but it's something that if we do it properly, it's very peaceful, and it doesn't send you into a state of chaos and panic and fear and so forth if you do it properly. So um, that is what I would recommend is people take the time to plan ahead of time.
Right, and they really need to do that care planning, like when I go out to do assessments and long-term care plans for people, um, it's, and like you said, I get called for the same thing at the crisis. They're being discharged from the hospital, and I'm not a miracle worker. I can't produce, there's resources out there, but you can't always produce them at the drop of a hat, and they're being discharged in 2 days. And here we need to get them on a plan that and give them the resources to cover their care. And like it can take a couple months to get for the applications for Medi-Cal or for the veterans benefit or whatever resources that we help them to determine that they qualify for and that they're eligible for. We have to look at the different eligibility criterion criterions and to help them to apply for those. And those resources,
Right.
they're there, but it can take time because of the way our healthcare system is. So
Mhm.
it really is important that they make that planning in advance so that when they do need the benefit, they are able to access that and have that resource.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I wanted to um, really point out is about having these conversations with your family members. I think, the end of life and aging and so forth, it's in some, I know that in some cultures it's taboo. You don't talk about it. You'd never mention um, life insurance, for example. In some, I know I'm Mexican. In our culture, it's changed now, but when I was younger, people did not get life insurance because they viewed that as bad luck. If you got life insurance, you were going to die. I'm here to tell everybody, I guarantee we're all going to die. That's the only guarantee in this world is that we're going to die.
They were born actually. That's
So, yes, exactly right. But people have a hard time with that. And I maybe because you and I we see it every day. We witness it with our clients and what have you. Um, it's easier for us, but I encourage individuals to feel at ease. The more that you feel more comfortable with having these conversations, the better it's going to be in the long run. And the conversations can be simple. At first, you just start talking about, you know, mom and dad, how would you like to age at home? What do you see yourself? How do you see yourself? Do you want to stay home? Do you want to go to a facility? Have those frank, direct conversations with them. Listen to them. Don't tell them, don't dictate, don't demand they're going to do one thing or the other. Listen to what their needs are and what they want, and it makes it so much easier to plan. So if your parents tell you, I'd like to stay here I want to stay here in my home till the very end, then you plan accordingly. If they say, oh, I really want to be around people, I'm more social, I want to be in a retirement community where I could interact with people every day, then you plan towards that. So, but you can't plan unless you have these conversations with one another.
so I get that a lot. I have people ask me, how do you initiate that conversation? I know a lot of adult children are really uncomfortable with bringing it up. So do you have some tips on how they can initiate that conversation?
Yeah, I think I do. I mean, the first tip is to, just start with simple questions or a simple conversation. But I think most importantly, it's really going to depend on the relationship you have with your parents or your aunt or your uncle or what have you. And I could only give you my experience. I am the youngest of nine children. And as the youngest of nine, I took on a role very early on that I was my parents' caretaker. I managed their medical appointments. I drove them places. I ensured that they had their medications, that and so forth. At a very young age, I just did that because my parents were older by the time I came around. So when I saw them starting to age, I since I already had that taken on that role of I'm caring for you and so forth, it was easy for me to have that conversation and ask them, well, what do you see yourself? Where do you see yourself aging? Do you want to stay in your home? And then I just listened. Or sometimes I would take advantage of conversations being had not necessarily about care, but just in general. And then if I heard something that prompted me to say, that brings me to a good question. Would you like to stay in your home and receive care here? Or, how, do you have an idea of what you want to do and so forth? So it's not, I'm not advocating that you come in one day with a notebook and say, this is what you're going to do, and we now need to plan. I think it has to start softly, but definitely stay on it. Continue to keep the conversation going until you do have a plan in place, at least a direction. You may not have all the pieces in place, but at least yes, mom and dad want to stay in their home or they want to go to a facility. And then you could put those pieces into play later on.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And um, in my experience, like you said, culture has a lot to do with it too. And like in your culture and a lot of other cultures, they are raised to, respect their elders, and it's a much easier conversation, I think, for them because there's more of that family cohesiveness and unit, and they're raised with that. But I find in America, a lot of Americans, we don't teach our children that, and we don't teach it in school too much, which is kind of sad. And I think we should start educating our children when they're younger. My children got a good education because I had a care home in the 90s, and they were raised in a care home. So they really got to be around seniors and elderly people. I had a guy that used to come play the piano for my residents, and actually their grandpa was an artist and he also played piano. So he would play for the residents, but my kids got to enjoy that too. But
Mhm.
anyhow, some of the things that I just want to add to what you said is that, like, especially if your loved one has dementia or they're in denial that they need help or need care, that's when the conversation can get more difficult. And also if they're a very private person and they a lot of times seniors don't want to discuss their finances with their children because that just feels like they're giving up a little bit too much of their independence or whatever. So that's a lot of times when it's a good idea to use a professional like you or me, and reach out to a third party, because a lot of times we can come in as the third party professional, and the elderly generation was raised to respect authority figures, and so they're more comfortable with having a medical professional come in and help them with creating a long-term care plan or having those difficult conversations that are not necessarily ones that they want to have with their children, but we can help bring the two of them together and say, this is what how I would approach this, and give them ideas. So that's another option that I like to offer my clients as well as, and if they need in-home care, then we refer them to, to Pacific Home Care, and in-home for in-home care services. Or if they need a higher level of care, then after the assessment, we can help them with those options. But
Right.
so, what are some of the financial aspects of long-term care? Can you share with us what the typical costs are associated with long-term care? Because that's another big question, that a lot of people have. They're like, gee, what is the cost these days? Especially with inflation lately, things have
Mhm.
changed a lot.
Right, right. Well, I could only speak on in-home care. I don't know the current cost of a residential facility. We're talking, and there's different levels. There's the residential where you don't get the one-on-one care, but you are there, and if you need anything, there's somebody there to assist you. Then there's the assisted living where you do have somebody kind of keeping an eye on you. It's not one-on-one care, but they're assigned to you and to ensure that you get the help that you need. If you come out of the hospital and you need to recover and you can't recover at home, that's where you need the skilled nursing facility. So when I refer to facilities, I'm referring more to the assisted living or the residential living type of facilities.
And yeah,
Um,
and let me correct that. When I said a higher level of care, that's not quite accurate because they can have the same level of care in home as in
mhm.
assisted living. So let me clarify that too.
Yeah.
When I say higher level care, I'm meaning more like it usually gets down to their budget. Unfortunately, it's the more money you have, the more options you have, and the less money you have, the less options you have. So if at some point, and in my experience, for most Americans, they can afford in-home care up to a certain point, like depending on how many hours a week they need. And but now with the new managed care with Medi-Cal, it is allowing people to stay at home with more, even if they need 24/7 care. So that's what's so great about that.
Right. And I'll cover all of that in a bit. But the cost for non-medical in-home care, I think you're looking at anywhere from 35 to $45 an hour, depending on the area you live. For Pacific Home Care, we charge $35 an hour, and it's if you use 10 hours, it's $350. If you use 2 hours, it's $70. It's just a flat hourly rate. So imagine 24-hour care, 7 days a week can add up quickly at those rates. We do charge an overnight rate, which is a little higher than 35. It's just our way to incentivize care providers or caregivers to take on those overnight shifts. So we pay them more for the overnight shift. Some people may argue, well, they may not do a whole lot, but they're giving up their nights. So we have to do it that way. Um,
Let me ask you, and I just want to make sure that I'm correct on this. Is the new managed care paying for people who need 24/7 in their home through
it,
Medi-Cal?
it really depends. So the way it works, the managed care plan, you can qualify for additional support through Medi-Cal if you have Medi-Cal through like Kaiser or Health Plan or HealthNet, Anthem, Blue Cross, and those types of managed care plans. But it's not 24/7. It is to supplement in-home supportive services. So if you already have IHSS, but it is determined that you need additional support, then that's where the managed care plan steps in and they will provide that extra support through us and Medi-Cal will cover that. So that's how that works. Does
So
did
then,
I answer?
so with the two coverages, they can get 24/7 care?
Yes, I think that they may be able to, but I would check with the individual in their coverage. So I don't know all I don't know how they determine that, because we normally send it up to the managed care plan and then they will tell us, okay, they qualify for X. Um, I haven't seen a 24-hour case. Um, I do have 24-hour, 7 days a week clients, but they pay out of their pocket. We call them private pay clients, where they pay it because they can afford it.
Yeah,
So,
that's kind of my understanding too. At the point where they need, like especially with dementia, as the disease progresses and they need 24/7 care, that's when it gets really costly. And at that point, sometimes that's when we recommend assisted living, where there's,
yeah,
you have, 3 different shifts of staff to come on to do 24/7 care, and
yes.
it's more cost effective for, especially for people who are private paying. Um,
Hmm.
uh, and, and also like you said, the managed care plan is new and there's only some, managed care companies, like you said, Blue Cross Health Net, that are doing that type of coverage. So it is not covered, for all types of insurance. So
Right.
United Healthcare is not providing that care. So that's part of the planning process that you were discussing earlier, like
Mhm.
making sure you have the right insurance that's going to cover that, in-home care for your loved one. And so that's why it's important to plan ahead, and because if you have to switch to a different insurance that has the kind of care that you need, that's a minimum of 30-day wait right there. So you want to get them established with that right away. And we're
Absolutely.
we're all kind of learning this, and hope, with the new managed care in California. And so hopefully there's going to be more of the insurance companies that are going to come on board, so that people aren't having to switch around between the insurances that cover it and the ones that don't. So
Hmm.
because it's new, but I think that we're going to see in the future more are going to be coming on board with this care, because this is the future of care for our elderly.
Absolutely. And then just to complicate it even more, there are some managed care plans that, yes, they may offer this service in Sacramento or San Joaquin, but they won't offer it in Alameda. So they only offer it in certain counties and others they won't do. So there's a lot of research that has to be done when you are trying to figure out if this is an option for you. One of the things that we often help individuals with is maneuver through that. So if they call our office and say, I live in this county and my loved one needs additional care, we can assess as well and just see, okay, it looks like you may qualify for this, either the managed care plan or VA, which is another area that I'd like to talk about because a lot of people don't know about um, those opportunities. Uh, but it's okay. Call our office if you have questions. We may not have the answer, and we may have to say you need to talk to Therese Johnson about this. She's the expert in that area. But when it comes to managed care plans and providing home care through them, we could answer a lot of the questions or redirect. So, which I'd like to add more about uh, how do you fund or how do you pay for these services? Unless you have unlimited funds, it's going to be challenging. It's going to be costly. This is why it's important that you plan ahead. So if Medicare does not cover any cost of long-term care, so that you need to understand that they just don't cover it. Um,
A lot of people
that
think it does. You're quite right. So they need to be aware of that.
Absolutely. And that includes any supplements, supplemental insurance. They do not cover that. Because we get calls a lot about, well, I have insurance and I have a supplemental insurance, da da da. And it's really sad. And we have to let them know that no, it's not covered.
So
They
what-
don't cover the non-medical piece, which
so
is the
not-
home care piece. The
so
what?
so what payment options are available for people?
So if you were a veteran or a spouse of a veteran, there's two types of services that you could get through the VA. One is called aid in attendance, and there's certain requirements to qualify for that particular benefit, which you could call our office. We connect you. We don't work directly with the VA, but we work with a third party entity. It's a nonprofit, and what they do is they specialize in VA benefits, and they can determine whether or not you will qualify for that service. So, but you could call our office and we could make the connection. The other service through them, they do fund personal care, but it's a well-kept secret with the VA. In fact, I don't know the statistic anymore, but about 2 years ago, I was at a conference where they talked about how many veterans qualified for in-home care versus how many actually were receiving it. And the percentages were, I think it was like only 4% of those that qualified actually knew about it or actually used it, although they qualified for it. So it's a well-kept secret.
Take them. Let them know about that benefit.
Yeah, so and so anyhow, most people don't know about it. The thing with that particular benefit, this is where I find things a little interesting sometimes. I can't go to the VA and say, I'd like to be a vendor for your veterans. I have to go to a third party and they have to vendor me. They have to be the one who says, okay, yes, you're legitimate and yes, you could offer these services. But they pick and choose who they want. And if they say, oh, nope, the market is saturated, there's no more room for you, they won't allow you to be a vendor, which is where I'm at right now in this whole area. They keep saying it's saturated. Yet the veterans aren't getting the service. So it doesn't, what they're saying on both ends don't mesh up. If they were saturated, you would say, oh my gosh, they are all receiving the benefit, but they're not. So that's where I say something doesn't add up. But I keep trying so that we could offer the services to the veterans. So that's another way. A third way is, and this is about planning early, long-term care insurance. It it is beneficial if you could get it early on. You could lock in your rate, which if you get it early on, you get a much lower rate. You lock it for the lifetime, and they will cover in-home care. They will cover care in a facility. They will cover things of that nature. So long-term care insurance, it's not very expensive but it can help you at the when you need it.
Oh, I thought long-term care insurance was pretty expensive. What is it these days?
Well, I think it depends when you buy it. So I have long-term care insurance, and it's only a couple $1,000s a year for both my husband and I, but we've had it since I think we bought it when we were 38, and that's even with me knowing I had this agency, I just didn't know what my future was going to hold or look like. And I said, I don't want to put my kids in a situation where they are stressed and having to care for me. So I'm going to plan ahead and I'm going to have this benefit available so that they don't have to worry. So I purchased it and I locked in back then.
A lot of
And
parents have that mindset too. They don't want to be a burden on their children, so that is a great option.
yes, it really is. And I'm now speaking to if you're an adult, a child of an adult child, and you're seeing your parents go and struggle through all of this. really consider, if you can, purchasing the long-term care. I don't benefit from you buying it. I just want you to know that it does provide you peace of mind knowing that when you are going to be in that situation, you aren't going to feel like you're a burden to your children. Not that your parents are burdens, but it does add an additional stressor, and it's just it helps in the long run. So long-term care insurance, I would highly recommend. Um, and then, of course, if you are a fortunate individual that has saved a lot of money or has done really well, there's always private pay where you pay out of pocket. But as you could calculate at $35 an hour, and that's today's rate, that times 24 hours is a big number. And you multiply that by 7 days a week, it's a bigger number. Multiply that by, 52 weeks, that number just gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Absolutely. And I don't want to go into too much of the legal considerations in care planning, but there are two really important documents that everyone should have. Can you address that a little bit?
Are you referring to the health directive?
Yes. And power of attorney for finances.
The what?
The power of attorney for finances.
Yes, yes. So, and yes, I agree. I'm not the expert in the legal aspect, but it is important, uh, especially if your parents, if there's a diagnosis of dementia, before the dementia gets to a place where they are deemed unable to make the right decisions, make sure that you establish that you get if you're the adult child and you want to have the power of attorney to manage their estate, their health, and so forth, get that done right away. It's pretty easy to do. It, it it's not that expensive anymore, and it would save you a lot of headaches in the future. Um, eh, so that's important. The health directive is also really important. That is also a conversation you have to have with your parent. Um, it just makes a world of difference. And I can give you a personal experience, again, with my mom. She saw my dad get very ill and ended up in the hospital, and he died while he was in the hospital and so forth. And she made us promise at that time that if she was diagnosed with anything, any kind of cancer or anything that was going to be just, the end, that we would not put her in a hospital because she did not want to die in the hospital. And she didn't want uh, um, invasive treatments or anything like that. She would say that often, and we would have these conversations. So all of the siblings knew what mom wanted. Mom got to us and a stage where dementia set in, and they did discover a mass under her kneecap, and it was malignant. And the doctor at the time said we could do surgery, but I don't know if she'll withstand it because at that time she was 93. And because she also had other health issues. And uh, her quality of life afterwards, it's going to be awful. Us knowing what mom had made us promise said, nope, we are going to do comfort. We're going to do, oh my God, hospice, and we're going to just be around her and surround her. And so we did for 6 months, and then she passed on peacefully. And she passed on in her home. She didn't. We weren't in and out of hospitals. She wasn't hooked up to things because those were her wishes. It made our life so much easier, and it felt so much better saying goodbye that way than the opposite. So that is why I highly recommend that you have those. They're tough conversations, but you should have them.
Absolutely. And that's awesome that you were able to do that for your mom too. That's great.
Mhm.
And it's one of the things that I'm always, recommending for people, and we're always making those available to our clients, the documents that they need to,
Yes.
because sometimes it's on your to-do list, but it needs to be really up there at the top.
It really is. Even if you're young, I know my husband and I have one in place, and we had to make really tough decisions like how long do they keep us on life support if we even want to be on life support? And your ideas change. When we put that document together, we had maybe at the time they were a 6 and an 8 year old. I told them, you do whatever you have to do to keep me alive because I need to be alive for those girls. Well, my girls are now 22 and 24. We just edited that directive and said they're at an age where they could take care of themselves. If mom is not there, they're going to miss me, but they don't need me every to do everything for them anymore. And so your life starts changing. So even those things you have to update and to
Yeah.
make sure that they are in line with where you're at in life.
Yeah, it's really important to update them too. I'm always recommending that as well, especially now if you haven't updated your documents in a while. They just changed all with all the new HIPAA privacy laws. You need to have all that incorporated, or they sometimes they won't even acknowledge them if you don't have the updated form that has all the new HIPAA laws included in it. So that's really important for people to make sure and do that. Um,
Absolutely.
so thank you for that. And I wanted to ask you, how can families evaluate and select the right care provider for their needs?
You're referring to the care provider who's actually going to care for them or the company that's going to send the care provider?
The just like identifying the right resources, yeah, for their care and their care needs.
What can they do? So I just want to make sure that I'm understanding the question. So what can they do to identify the, oh, well, if you're referring to, if the family doesn't quite know, do I need a nurse to come in or do I just need non-medical additional assistance? If that's what you're referring to. So if you want non-medical care, which is the services that Pacific Home Care provides, that is when the way to identify that need is if the individual needs help with meals, they need help driving, they need help dressing or bathing, or the everyday tasks that we all do and we take for granted that we can do. When the individuals can no longer do it for themselves, that is when our caregivers can go in their home and they will be that extra set of hands to help them. Um, that is how you determine if it's home care, non-medical home care. If the individual requires medication administration and wound care and so forth, that is a nurse, and that is that those have to things of that nature have to be done by a licensed individual, which is nursing. That's a home health care, and that's different. Uh, but if your loved one has been in the hospital and they're being released, the social workers at the hospital or the discharge nurses should be able to tell you, guide you a little bit as to what you may need, what kind of service you need. If you're referring to the actual person caring for you or your mom and dad, we have a process in place where we call it a meet and greet. So we will send a caregiver, the potential caregiver, to meet your loved one so that they could get to know one another. And that person is identified based on real basic things. We almost call it like a matchmaking service, so to speak, because we believe that it's really important. Personalities matter. Um, you have to learn from your client. What we do is we learn from the client. What kind of personality do you like? Do you work best with? Do you like somebody who really chats a lot, or do you like somebody who's a little more quiet? Uh, Things of that nature. So we go through a whole list of questions to try to determine who would be the best caregiver for this individual. Based on that, then we identify the individual, then we send them to the meet and greet. It has to be mutual. Our caregiver has to feel comfortable with the client and vice versa. If they do, we call that a match, and that person becomes their caregiver. We don't do the send whoever's on duty that day or in and out. We match you and we keep you together unless it doesn't work out. But we have a really high success rate because I think we take a lot of time up front to make sure that we're sending you the right person, rather than just whoever is on duty.
And that's so wonderful. And I'm sure you do a great job because I can just tell that you're a caring and compassionate woman yourself. And that's so, so good to hear because that really is important. And matching personalities is half the battle, frankly, and they do, and they,
Mhm.
plus it helps, I think, when they know they have a choice and they're not just being saying, here, this is who's going to be the one that's, caring for you. I think we need to give respect and dignity to our elders and let them know that they have a choice. So got,
Absolutely.
that's just ideal what your method is, and thank you for that. So I hope our listeners are really paying attention because that is
I hope so too. Yes, and we've been doing it this way for 20 years. And people often ask me, what do you think the reason for your success? And it's a very simple formula. We listen to our clients and we really truly care about our clients. We want the best for them. So if you do that, then it's simple. We're not perfect. We make mistakes, but we really, I believe, go above and beyond to try to provide that exceptional care for all of our clients. So
we just have a few minutes left. What's one piece of advice that you would give individuals beginning their long-term care planning journey?
the one piece of advice would be to connect with somebody who knows the area, the industry, whether they call you or they could call my office. I think it's important that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to do all that research. If you trust that we can provide you with some great guidance, call us and we will do it. I often tell people, there's no obligation. If you call me and you have me come out to your home and explain things, there's absolutely no obligation. I am happy to do it. I do it often. I do it often with friends who have questions and are very a little bit lost as to where to go next. And I will redirect them, whether it's to our services. More often than not, it's not even uh, they don't even need us. And we're the first ones to say, we're not the right agency for you, but I recommend you go here. And so I would advise people to reach out to you or to another agency to get some of that assistance.
That's wonderful. And so we I'm so happy to have had you on the interview today, and I really want to encourage our families to start those conversations with their loved ones to so they're prepared and have a plan in place, and maybe to call a professional if they need help to create a plan that can be very helpful when you're dealing with all the emotions that are going on, and sometimes that are just can be overwhelming. I mean, I
Mhm.
have 70-year-olds taking care of 90-year-olds, and it's just they're overwhelmed and exhausted, and they're not
Absolutely.
there are these resources out there that will help pay for someone to come in and help them with this.
Hmm.
and great companies like yours, Pacific HomeCare. And I just want to let everyone know that Leticia's company is in over 8 counties. They are in San Joaquin, Sacramento, Sonoma, Alameda, Solano, Monterey, and Santa Clara, just and more. So they are, and you can check them out at their website at pacifichomecare.com. And their phone number is 877-956-2532. You can reach them there and they will help you with, like she said, they would come out and do a free consultation, help
Mhm.
match up your loved one with the right caregiver, somebody that they're going to be comfortable with and have a choice in choosing their care and getting their needs met. So I really appreciate you, Leticia, and all the gifts that you bring to our seniors. You are amazing. I you help so many seniors. It's just incredible the success that you've had. I admire you so much, and thank you so much for being on this interview today and helping educate our seniors. Do you have any last words for our listeners?
Well, I just want to say thank you, and I appreciate being asked to share this information. And no, I wish everybody a great rest of your day. And if you have any questions, just give us a call, and we're happy to help you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.